Okay. Hello, the internet. Welcome to Open Source Directions, hosted by OpenTeams, the first business-to-business marketplace for open source services. Open Source Directions is a webinar that brings you all the news about the future of your favorite open source projects. I'm Tony Fast. I'm a scientist and developer advocate at Quantsite from Atlanta, Georgia. And I'll be your host for Open Source Directions today. Co-hosting with me is...
Hi, I'm David Charbonneau, CTO at OpenTeams, and I'm excited to be here again co-hosting. And I'm coming to you from Durham, North Carolina. Today, what we're going to be talking with...
Fabian. My name is Fabian Franz. I'm the VP at Software, Vice President at Software Engineering at Tech One Consulting, and I have a pretty special birthday because I happen to be born open source, and that means my birthday is the same day as GNU was born, and that was so funny. At one time, I was at a Debian conference, and they both celebrate me and GNU. So that's the thing. Overall, I enjoy architecting. I love architecting software. For Drupal, what's our topic today, I've architected the caching system. It's still one of the most advanced open source caching systems out there. I don't even know if closed source has something similar to cache context, etc. So I'm passionate about performance. I'm passionate about making the internet fast. I'm passionate about helping people solve problems, essentially. So empowering them to do things, to be able to use Drupal, for example, to make the fastest site the internet has ever seen, high performance, so that you could compete with the Drupal site with something like Facebook or so. Drupal has a big pipe of Facebook, for example. We have a big pipe module. You can have the streaming automatically, and you don't even need to configure anything. It works kind of out of the box if you build a site in the right way. Also doing a lot of mobile development and other things. But in general, I like to innovate. I've also originally brought the Twig template engine from Symfony, fame of Fabien Potentier, into Drupal way back in 2013, 2012, 2013. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Welcome, Fabian. We're super excited to talk about your passions today. But before we get into the juicy details of Drupal, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about recent pull requests that you found particularly interesting, right? This is our social media. So what kind of good stuff have you seen happening in PRs, Fabian?
Lots of things to see. The internet's just great. But what I especially like PRs for, and what I find fascinating is working with Rust. I've recently started looking at reviews by the founder of Tech One. He's writing a load testing tool, completely open source. It's called Goose, and it's written in Rust. And if someone is familiar with Locust, which is written in Python, Goose can do the same essentially, but it uses the CPU and everything much better because it doesn't have the global interpreter lock. But some things are a little bit more difficult in Goose. So one of my PRs, my own PRs in this case, was making it possible to use closures, which is non-trivial in a language like Rust. So now you can completely programmatically build your load test. You can build it from a spreadsheet or whatever you want, and then modify it, things like that. So that's what came to mind if you said PR of the week. It's not this week, but we just time traveled back a few weeks.
Oh, that's fine. It takes a long time to land PRs. What about you, David? What's been interesting in your little part of the open source world?
Well, OpenTeams was approached by Matthias Brissonnier, who had a great idea for a follow-up to Hacktober. He calls it Closember. The idea is that in November, there's going to be all these pull requests that need to be processed and dealt with by the maintainers. And so why not encourage that and provide a way for maintainers of different projects to kind of commiserate and work together with each other and their respective communities. So we moved the prototype support for this into a new domain, closember.org. and we're starting to get ready to plan some events for Closember, and see if we can have this wonderful complement to Hacktober.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea, and it'll definitely help out some parts of the community. For me, I made a bunch of PRs a while ago, and now I have to fix them. You forget that like the hard part isn't getting the PR in; the hard part's getting the PR closed. So I don't have anything specifically interesting. I've just got some work to do after this episode's over. Yeah, let's continue and get into the details of Drupal. Drupal is an open source content management platform. It supports a variety of websites ranging from personal web blogs to large community-driven websites. We can find some more information at Drupal.org, and it seems that the Drupal community has so much energy in it too, which is at Drupal.org/community. There's a mirror of Drupal on. I know y'all have your own Git repo. There's a mirror on GitHub. It's got quite a few. It's got over 3,000 stars, and I guess you had mentioned there's over 3,000 independent contributors to this project.
Yes, definitely. Drupal 8. There was a website, celebrate-drupal8.com. I think it was called, and it listed all the 3,000 people. They even made a little like contribution map where all the names are shown. I'll see if I can find it later. But yeah, that was pretty cool to see, kind of to be part of such a huge open source project. So Drupal is not only old to what we come later, but it has a huge community of contributions like that. It's for everyone to contribute. That's
Well, yeah. I mean, when I looked up some stats on the project, y'all seem to just be one of the most popular open source projects. I didn't even think to look who is ahead of y'all, but in the United States, you're the fourth most. In some countries, you're like the first most used open source project. So we're really excited to be talking to you about Drupal and its community today.
So I've got a question that might sound a little odd following talking about how popular and the longevity of the project has been, but who started Drupal and why? What need does it fill?
Drupal was started by Dries Buytaert, and I can tell the history, but I also want to quickly share the screen of the history tab.
Oh, sure.
So that we can all look together a little bit. So let's share this tab here. Yep, this is the homepage of Drupal, but now we want to look at the history page, and there we can quickly see how it was started. It was started by Dries Buytaert and Hans Snyder, and they originally needed an internet connection that they could rely on. So they shared an ADSL connection, and then they need to coordinate that a little bit because, yeah, sharing across 8 students. So they want to have a little name. And so they want to call it, and for this they need a website, and there was nothing really out there. And so a small news site with a web board was started, and there they could talk about what they were doing, etc. So for this, they create basically a small CMS. What need does it fill? Drupal is for everyone. It's a CMS for everyone essentially. So if you look a little bit again at the homepage, in that there's lots of sections by Drupal. It's for developers, it's for marketers, for agencies. There's lots of case studies. Drupal is in the news everywhere. But those are kind of the 3 things. It can help you as an agency to make really data-driven applications. We come a little bit later to that. It can be used for marketers. You can pretty quickly set up a site that's looking nice, but it's not limited. A lot of those frameworks, like the non-open source world that are commercial, they're very limited in what they can do in the end. And one of the problems is if you're so limited, at one point you come to that limit. And once you're there, what are you going to do now? And with Drupal, you have flexibility. And that means that in all my career of Drupal, and I've been using it personally since 2009, so also over 10 years now, there was nothing that Drupal didn't have a way to do, essentially. And often it was many things, obviously, can be complicated if requirements are complicated, but if the requirement was pretty stable and clear and was just some extension needed here or there, there's usually a good way that Drupal can do that. And that's cool. So yeah, and that brings us for Drupal for developers. We have essentially two versions to choose from right now. The old legacy Drupal 7, that is more for those people that like the more function-based, not functional, that's something else, function-based programming style with no almost no classes, and really programming like it's 1999 with PHP 4. No. But there's also this modern version of Drupal that's based on Symfony, like Laravel is also based on Symfony, another popular open source framework, and lots of being able to use modern front-end technologies with it, like Vue, React, P-React, whatever you want to use. I mean, there's 20, and every week there's a new framework, probably. But whatever, Drupal has JSON API, REST API, and it can access all those things. And you could even create your own API very easily if you want to. GraphQL, yeah. So whatever front-end application you have, you can combine it with Drupal. So that's also why it's for developers, and even those that are using the hotness of JavaScript frameworks or whatever is hot right now this week.
Right. Well, that was a great history. Thank you so much. Maybe before I don't know if you need to close the screen just yet. We can you describe the history of the. You've already talked about the name, but the logo.
Yes, I didn't finish talking about the name because I have this little cheat sheet, where it tells me what question you want to still ask in this section. So I want to give it all away. But Dorp is Dutch for village, and that's how Drupal got its start. But then Dries actually misspelled it as drop.org, and so the domain got not dorp.org, but drop.org, which is that. And so it all started with kind of this little mistake, and then we have this logo. Now it makes much more sense of what the Drupal icon is, because it's a drop. And so Drupal till version 4 was called the drop. And then it was renamed to the other part when the software was finally released, and it's pronounced Drupal, and it comes from the Dutch word Drupal. I'm not sure if I said it right now, which means drop. So this is how it all comes together, the making of the Drupal and the name and everything like that. So pretty cool story in that a typo kind of started the logo, and then from the logo it was released, and yeah.
So many great things come out of happy little accidents.
Exactly,
great.
Happy little trees.
Yeah.
Or drops in this case.
Well, are there alternative projects out there?
Sure. I'm going to stop screen sharing for a moment because we don't need a screen for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's all those commercial things. There's WordPress. There's the CMS of the week. There's node-based CMS. There's all those new things. And they're all great if what you want to do is build a little site for the next door client that's a bakery or whatever like that, or even a larger organization already. And we have so much choice right now, and it's fantastic. But there's one thing that Drupal is still king of, and that is structured data. And I've heard that your audience is often scientists, and they're interested in Python and data-driven things. So later when we'll be looking at a demo of Drupal, we'll be looking at specifically this part, how you can structure data together, how you can input data, and how it can help present data. Strong taxonomies with 10 levels deep, no problem, Drupal can do that. And this is one of its strong parts. The other part where it's strong is that it allows everyone to build a website. but not a simple website where you click some boxes together. But my sister, when she was still studying, had a little homepage, and where she put some data on actually the magic craft of Harry Potter. She kind of collected those, and so it was data-driven approach. And then at one point she wanted to create a new side of it, and then I showed her basically, here's where you can create your fields, and did some screen sharing, etc. And the rest she built kind of herself, and it's possible. So Drupal has this role of a site builder. And this role of a site builder is pretty unique to Drupal, because it means you can set up a pretty complex site just by click. Many developers don't like that, just to be clear. So many I want to code everything, I want to put it all in, etc. And that's fine. But one of the reasons why Drupal has been very popular and is still popular, we can look a little bit at the usage at some point, is that we have the site builder role, and the site builder doesn't need to know how to write code. Drupal had no code because before no code was popular, essentially. It's a little bit more involved than how those no code tools are evolving. I had wished that Drupal could have gone into this direction a little bit more of making that easier, but it's what it is. But anyway, the site builder really allows you to create very complex sites with no coding at all. We'll be looking at that later.
Thank you so much for all of those stories. They were fabulous. It seems like the technology choices you make are important in the success of Drupal. So what are some of the core technologies that Drupal's built on that afford you this success?
LAMP, the money-making machine. No. No. Yeah, there was this joke on Twitter where kind of someone was like, yeah, but you need a CDN, and you need this service and microservice and Kubernetes and everything. The other person was, I have index PHP, LAMP, money-making machine. So yeah, it's Drupal is not as easy as index PHP. So, but essentially we are running the Linux Apache MySQL PHP stack. What's mostly used, often Memcache is added, or Redis, because Drupal is making very heavy cache usage of caching technologies, especially with Drupal 9 and the new cache system. So unfortunately for smaller sites, a database would still be enough, but if you have lots of writes like per second, then MySQL really doesn't like that. And unfortunately, the support where it essentially can speak the Memcache protocol, MySQL, that never got really so stable because it could circumvent the query layer and all those things and keep it also more in memory and write it back and be less stressful for InnoDB. That never got off the ground. So for now, just adding a Memcache instance on Kubernetes, that's no problem at all anyway. Or Redis is probably still the best choice if you want to do a professional thing. There's lots of hosting companies, commercial offerings that are automatically giving you kind of these things. So in this case, the landscape also has changed. While before it was mainly shared hosting that was there, for now many things are doing enterprise or managed hosting. So like all the GraphQL headless things, you can use Drupal for that as well. You can just have a Drupal and a thing that's basically exporting everything to static content, then exporting to the web. But can do as well. But the current Drupal is still basically the main thing, as you have this Drupal, and then it outputs your pages, and you host it somewhere. You add some caching layers to it, Memcache, maybe a little CDN or Varnish, and that's it. So for the more professional things. Yeah, so that's our stack.
That's nice. It has that feeling that you can start small and you can opt into more sophisticated support over time, with relative ease, and that way you can grow with your audience. That's fantastic.
Definitely you can.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, you can definitely start with a very small Drupal site, and once it gets bigger, you can do performance testing, checking, with schools, for example, load testing, and then you know, I probably need to do something here, and then go your way.
So who currently maintains the project?
There's several versions. So there's Drupal 9, Drupal 8, Drupal 7, and Drupal 6. There's still 30,000 sites. Let me quickly share the user statistics.
Sure.
So you can take a look at that. Let me share that tab. Chrome tab. Go. As we can see, there's still 1.1 million. There's 1.1 million sites on Drupal, and that's pretty constant. There has been this old version of Drupal 7 that is really popular and still popular. I'm the maintainer of this 7x version, so I'm still responsible for, together with another person, for 690K sites. Dries officially is also a maintainer, but is focusing more on the newer versions and overall project oversight, etc. And we can see the most popular 8 version is still the 8.9x, the last release before the 9. And there's already around 40K sites on the 9 version. So it's pretty much fractured like that. You can see there's a little bit of a change here. Before we had like this 5x, 6x, 7x, 8x thing, where we essentially always had one big version, and then we switched to semantic versioning, and then it was every 6 months, and then a new major version came out. So we had this minor releases and then the major releases and no BC breaking changes, and then with Drupal 9 the first BC breaking changes. So that was a large change. While before everything was integrated in Drupal 7 and Drupal 9, we are dependent on Symfony components, and they also have some certain end of life and depend on other technologies, but it's all basically together. So what is an advantage is that with the 9 version, you essentially can always upgrade, because upgrades are easy as long as you keep on it. But you must, in a way, also upgrade, because the whole ecosystem is always changing with the Drupal 7 version. And you could essentially keep on the platform if you wanted to. It will be end of life soon. It's probably 1 more year, I think, by now. But the thing is, even though it's kind of end of life at that point, there will be commercial offerings that are already working for the Drupal 6 version, which still has 30K sites, which really does not change that much. It's 32 to 31 over a course of a month or so. So it's still very active with the Drupal 6 sites that are still there. They are persistent. And so this Drupal part, and for this Drupal 6 version, we already have successfully the long-time support that's offered by commercial vendors. Take One is one of them. There are others that are also doing that, and we think the same will happen with Drupal 7. And so whoever is on Drupal 7, it will cost a little bit of a fee, at least for the enterprise support, and if you want to really get taken care of. But in essence, you could if you want to, you could be like those 6x sites and just keep on the platform. It's a very stable platform. It's a nice platform, and it works. I mean, if I didn't like it, I would not be maintainer of it still. And yeah, it still has potential. We just had PHP 7.4 support and other things, and MySQL 8 is around the corner. So and we can do all that, and that's really cool. So, and Drupal 9, however, is the newest hotness, which I will be also showing. So it depends what you want, what you need, and etc. For most people, probably the 9x version is a better choice, because they while you need to continuously upgrade, you can continuously upgrade very easily due to the BC model. So when we essentially deprecate just here at this point between 8.9x and 9x, was code that was deprecated for this long time finally removed. So you had a long time to upgrade. And I think asymmetric versioning is just great.
Well, this is thank you for telling us more about the users in the community. It's going to be hard to talk about all the users, but where your users seem to come from everywhere. What about your contributors? Where are you finding folks contributing to the Drupal project from?
Everywhere. No, it's really Drupal is everywhere. It's all around the world. There's Australia, America, Europe, a lot. Especially when we were finishing the Drupal 8, there was a core team in Europe that was doing a lot of the hard work and finishing it. So Drupal being started in Europe, even though most of the larger companies are in America, open source spirit is still very much alive here in Europe a little bit. And there's also always camps, like before COVID, obviously, like developer days, where developers come together, hack together for a week or 10 days at some nice location like that, some castle at one point, and so yeah, with some ghosts, etc.
I would love to hack in a castle. That sounds fun. Is the Drupal project participating in any diversity and inclusion efforts?
Yes, they are. We have a whole initiative that is diversity and inclusion. They always speak at the DrupalCon, and I think one of the things that I find important for diversity and inclusion is the overall topic. I mean, in its own, it's also very important, but it's the overall topic of being human. We are all humans. We all belong together in the end. That's at least the end goal of all of that. However you reach it is your own choice, but the end goal is essentially we are all human, and this being human aspect that is always a part of DrupalCon. So we not only have technical tracks, etc. Now they are online, so even easier to go to them. But we are all humans. There can be sessions about burnout. There can be sessions about how people from marginalized communities have stronger problems with burnout, for example, or something like that, because of certain issues or something. So there could be lots of things that are like all together, or how can I increase the diversity in my company or so. So that's an important part of that diversity and inclusion, to be at this DrupalCons, to have this voice, and always sometimes even keynote speakers, etc. So really cool.
It's great to hear that.
It's just lovely overall. It's a lovely community, and all the people are so great. And when we were still able to meet in person, it was like, in a way, like getting to a family gathering, but not the bad kind, but the good kind,
It's great to hear that that's such an integral part of the community and the practice for this project and for the conferences.
Yeah, the mental and physical health of your communities is important, and I'm super glad to hear you all talk about that part. There's a lot more I've learned as I got into software. There's a lot more to open source than just being able to sling some code. There's a lot of new challenges that folks are unaware of. But now's a good time to shift, and we're going to switch into the project demo, and we'll get to see some really cool features of Drupal and how it works. While Fabian's getting set up here, we would like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsor, Quantsite, for sponsoring this episode of Open Source Directions. Quantsite's creating value from data. So when you're ready, Fabian, please take it away.
You got it. Here we go. So this is a sample installation of Drupal. This is shipping with Drupal itself. It's a UMAMI distribution essentially, and it shows how pretty Drupal can look. Like it doesn't need to look like the next thing, but it can look really, really pretty. So we have here this recipe collections. We have here these banner. Then we can take a look at the articles there on the side, give it a go, and grow your own herbs, etc. We can view an article, and so that's really cool. And And here's, for example, some more featured articles. But now we look at a little bit and how can we build something like that? So here we have this more featured article, and it's and we can edit this view. So, and that's kind of what I meant with the site builder role, because what would usually be some code that needs to live in some controller, etc. Here, you just configure it. So if you want to say, for example, I need a site where only the unpublished content is here, not going to do that now, but I could click here, select published, so just no, apply, and then I would be saving, and then would be only showing me the unpublished content. Okay, there's no, right now there is no, no thing. But yeah, this is one possibility of how to do it. So I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to do that, but here we are back. So, and then we have something, what's also very nice is Drupal it makes it very easy, and that also speaks to the inclusion of the whole world, because it's important to support different languages if you want to be international. So here we have this whole site again in Spanish. And now we can look at that. So let's go back to English. You have some built-in search. It's very simple to, if you want to extend the stack, to extend Drupal with something like Apache Solr, because we have a search API, and this can also work with other Lucene-based search engines. So that's pretty good. Then we also have this recipes, being chocolate, nut, and brownie. Oh, I love that. Let's go there. And here you can see, this is it here, preparation time, cooking time, number of servings, recipe instructions, ingredients, very nice. We can share the link later. So if anyone want to put that, they would need to set up a Drupal site. So there's some work to do for you. But what I want to look at real quick now is the layout, essentially. So we can take a look at the layout, and we have this little thing called Layout Builder. And then we can see, and I'm going to quickly check this show content preview off, because then it's get a little bit more clear of what we are seeing here. We have the recipe category field, the text field, the summary field, a media field, preparation time, cooking time, difficulty, ingredients, recipe, moderation control field. And if I now show the content preview again, then we can say, here's our category with the tags, our image, and here are all those blocks that we have seen. And we can basically drag and drop them. We can add new blocks. We can add new fields. So it's very, very flexible in what it can do. And it's also giving me this little hint that I'm just now editing the layout for just this recipe content item. So I can essentially overwrite it, but I could also edit the template for all the recipe content items instead. And then here it just gives me one example. And then I could essentially try to change it for all recipes, and I could add something for all the recipes. Another nice thing that Drupal has is both its translation support. So I can translate that in different languages. So if I edit it, now we are looking at the edit screen. We can already see that also all the interface is Spanish here. And then we see the category, the image, etc. There's even the possibility, if I enabled that, to have a different image per language. So if I had an image where there was some text on it, I could upload different ones for the different languages. And another thing that is very nice is revisions. That means you never need to be shy in doing any changes. So if I want nut brownies, cool. To add that to the title here, I can both do a preview. So once I've seen that, okay, this is how it looks like. Yeah, that looks good. So then I can go back essentially and say, okay, and now we want to save this. For this translation, this is English, and now we have it super cool. Now someone comes, that might have been a little bit overboard. So let's just revert to an older version, revert. And here we are. And we are back to our old title. And there's a div module, so I can div changes, etc. So it's all probably not what you're one person that is having a site with little things neat. But as soon as you've got a team of several content editors, you want content moderation, you want workflow, and Drupal has all of those. There's even much more advanced workflow tools. But I promised one thing: we would be looking at structured data. What we're going to do is we're going to expand this little thing here. We look at the structure part. So, and there's a structure here. I can select my blogs, content forms, etc. But what we're going to interest in is content types. And we have this little article here, for example. No, what we're going to do is first is taxonomy. Sorry, taxonomy. So taxonomy, everyone scientific will know what that is. And we're going to add a moon phase to our recipes, because everyone knows that there is the best moon phase for writing a recipe. So there's a vocabulary language for that, and the default language, and then we can even enable translation, but we could also say it's not specified, the language, or it's not applicable. So let's not translate the thing for now, or maybe no, we translate it. We save it, and now we have this moon phase essentially, and now we could add a term like recent moon. Could even describe it. We could even have here another field. So, for example, this what I'm going to go show now: the full moon, and a half moon, and a secret of mana moon. But that's not on a show. So we go back to taxonomy, and now we can go to this thing, and we can manage the fields. And now we have this tags, for example, and we add a field, and that's just a reference. And we reference another taxonomy term and call that the tags. And now we select the vocabulary. Yeah. Okay. And now we can select the vocabulary, the tags, and then we have different ways of referencing these taxonomies. We can create them automatically, etc. Here you can see already it gets a little bit technical, but still cool. So when we now add a new moon phase, essentially, and there we need to go back to this taxonomy, list the terms, and add a term. So we also need a half moon, and then we can see, there's our text we can add, and we just add, this is a cool moon, and it's secret of mana ending.
So do you get validation and stuff when you do these things?
Yes, it could be. So cool. This is free text essentially, but you could also say that only selected text should be allowed. Okay. Actually, there is validation, so I would need to create them first because I didn't check this checkbox there. Anyway, not important. But now what I could do to my article is content types and my recipe. Again, I could go manage fields. Here's also a field tags, but I think that's a free field tag. And I could add a field, and so another taxonomy term, and call that moon phase. Nice. And once we have that, that's pretty cool. Saving. Taxonomy term, limited one. Yep. And now what we want to do probably is we'll want to do this moon phase category, and we want to say that default value should be a person.
So are there different like administrative interfaces and stuff that you can have when you're using Drupal? This is just one example. Yeah,
definitely. So this is the Gin theme. You can also write your own admin theme if you wanted to. Here's our moon phase, and gonna check this real quick. Okay, I need to create something here. No, that's fine. And there's also other widgets usually where I can then just have like a drop down with chosen, etc. I just didn't enable this here. But we could see if it's available. This is live, so one other specialty is, in these times at least, is that you don't need to go to the code base and do something, but you can install a module essentially by options, different radio buttons, reference, see if there's something we want. There's not, but essentially here's several modules I could install. So if I want to have comments on my articles or whatever, then I could just enable that. There's still a forum in it. So lots of useful things out of the box. And then there's this whole essentially ecosystem of things where, again, you could have lots of parts. So the possibilities are kinda endless. You have different themes that you can choose from. This is Umami, here this nice thing, a new admin theme, the old admin theme. So lots of possibilities. And obviously you can manage your content. And again, this is all essentially configurable. So I can, for example, I want to filter all articles, and I want to filter all articles that are in English. And I can do that. It's no problem, essentially. And so yeah. And the nice thing is, however, if I don't like this filter and I don't like this author or whatever like that, then most of those filters are views, and that means I can change them. And this is just one part where Drupal is just so very flexible that I can essentially just go to the structure, and I can look at all the views on the site, and there's probably a content view, for the admin content page, and I can edit it. And here we see the fields, for example. The username is called author. And
this seems like a great way for folks with teams with different abilities to be able to work together on a site.
Definitely. And and for many things, as you've seen, you don't need a developer. You just need a little bit more advanced person that can do that. And so once we go back to content, we just changed the string. No coding required, all in the database, essentially.
The original no code.
Yeah, they marketed it better. I must admit that.
Open source projects have to take too much marketing responsibility too, right? Like, I thought we were just supposed to write the software. But thank you so much for that walkthrough. That was really cool to see. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. We're going to move into the roadmap section real quick. This is kind of the meat of the episode here. I noticed when I was preparing for today that Drupal has like 2 future directions. They've got strategic initiatives and roadmaps. I was wondering if you could mention broadly where the project's going and how those concepts sort of fit into the future direction of the project.
So the strategic initiatives, a lot of part is essentially in the roadmap, is that we want to be able to ensure that we are fit for the future. So the strategic initiatives are that the admin UI, as you've seen, it's nice, it can do the job, but it could look a lot better. And it's also that many frameworks are going in the direction of just having a slick JavaScript application-like framework. So actually, let me share that window. That makes it simpler to explain the things when the audience can see. Strategic initiative, share. So admin UI, JavaScript modernization. So it's very important that we get a better UI and that we have something more modern than jQuery in core. So that is very, very important, that it feels slicker to use Drupal, that the UI feels better. And as you've seen, when I did that, I could do everything, but it still felt a little bit clunky. There are many options that probably from a UX standpoint, I shouldn't need to know about at that point, and that should really be hidden somewhere or be less prominent. Right now, everything has the same importance. And I think that's one of the points where a new initiative for great admin UI could shine in saying these are the important parts of the UI and these are less important, and giving that more part. Another next thing is the API first, so that Drupal can speak to your mobile application, that it can speak to your website. It creates the automatic static websites and all of those things, multilingual. It can even, there was even one Drupal system that did an Alexa integration, so that's pretty cool. So this is that everything should be automatic first. Then, since years over time, finally we got back to automatic updates. There was for a long time a strong backlash from the security community, because any automatic updater is also responsible for example, 690K sites. So if there's any bug in the updater itself, it could be pretty bad. So it starts to be a large thing. On the other hand, so many things have changed, and there are so many possibilities now in doing essentially things that, there is a way to do it. And there was funding provided by the European Union for this initiative, and they've been very nice in supporting open source. And so this automatic updates will finally at some point come to Drupal. And that means you could have your site on the net and you allow it to be automatically updated, and then you don't have to worry about security issues as much anymore because it automatically updates itself. So that's a pretty nice thing to see. Composer support in core, yes. So Composer is PHP's packet management system, similar to NPM or PyP, I think. So this is essentially for that, and it should be a little bit more integrated. Right now it feels a little bit foreign, and I was able to install this Drupal site. There are tools for local development called DDev, Orlando, or other things. With just Composer, I just essentially did go to the DDev docs, checked how do I install Drupal 9, and installed it. Because while I do a lot of maintenance of site, I'm not installing it every day in a demo environment. I have my local installations for development of core, but I don't have some for a completely fresh thing, and I didn't want to set up virtual hosts, etc. So just using this, I was able to get a Drupal site running probably in around 10 minutes or so. So it's really simple if you use the right Dockerized tools. By now, configuration management is really cool. Configuration management is kind of like the second part of the site builder role that you've seen. So while the site builder essentially is creating this configuration, now it all lives in the database. And while for little sites that might still be acceptable, we found over the years that that's a little bit difficult. If you always change the live site because you make a mistake and suddenly half your site is 503ing, less than ideal. So in Drupal, many parts are still then done via the command line, and we have often this workflow of dev, stage, and live. And so you do something on your dev environment with a fresh database, you export the configuration, and then you import it again on live as a default. So if anyone had changed it on live, this import would essentially fail because the state it expects does not match the state it should be in. So you're not overwriting any changes, for example, done in a hotfix, because, hey, it's Friday night and site goes down and you need to fix something real quick. And no one at that point usually, I mean, documenting in a ticket maybe, but no one is putting in the proper fix in the code at that point. And So that can then, because the next Monday there's another alert or whatever, can already be forgotten. And so this helps essentially. So the configuration management is essentially the default, and as long as no one changes it on the live side, which you can remove the permissions from. Drupal has a very great permission system, both in 7 and 9. It allows you very granularly to show what each person can do. Is allowing you to do that. Then you have the documentation and help functionality, essentially. So much more better experience in using Drupal, evaluating Drupal, etc. Just documentation, etc. Then we have the roadmap, because before the end of life dates of the other parts, we need to replace certain parts in core again. Drupal 9 will already be end of life at 2023. So, and there's jQuery UI, PHP 7, Symfony 4, CK804. All of those need to be ready at that point. So it needs to run on PHP 8, Symfony 6, and it needs to have a new editor. There's a media initiative because media is still, it's already working pretty well, but still a large part of what editors like to do. They need drag and drop, they need to change things, they need to reuse media, which was for a long time a pretty large problem in Drupal until the media module came in and made that all simpler, that you have like a media library you can choose from, you can add to, but that's also moderated in a way, because nothing worse than someone accidentally changing the image of the homepage out and being that immediately live. There's also, that's not an initiative, but just noticing it, there's something really cool. It's cooler, the best cool thing since sliced bread, I think. It's called CPS, and it's a content preview system. In Drupal 8, it's a module, and it's called Workspaces. And this allows you essentially to do several changes, to change an image, prepare content, change several things on the homepage, even change the layout, etc. And then in the end, when you are finished with that, you're working in a sandbox, and someone else can work in another sandbox. When you are finished, you just click a button and all your changes are live at once. So it's not only one workflow for one article that you're working on that you're then publishing, or one person, poor person, that has to click 10 times to publish things, and then the users might still see the main article before the corresponding banner is coming live, etc. But you can do all that simultaneously. And to my knowledge, no other CMS, there's other parts that have one staging server, yes, but no other CMS out there has modules that are able to give you unlimited staging area like Git would do. And at least no other CMS that's backed by a database and not backed by Git, which obviously would have. There's a new front-end theme in the work. So again, it's about making it beautiful, And then we have the workflow here. So that's pretty cool. And these are all the initiatives that have been already completed. So that's a lot of that. That was mine.
That is an impressive amount of things that are going on in parallel, as well as just an impressive amount of progress. That's great.
And forethought.
Yeah.
And forethought, right? I can't look at next week and y'all are 2022. Get out of here.
That's fantastic.
Well, hey, thank you so much for laying out the roadmap. It looks like we're about running out of time. So this is when we get to our world famous rant and rave section. So, this is your 15-minute soapbox to rant and rave about anything that you want. And I'm pretty sure that Fabian chose to rave about something.
Yeah. Can you start real quick, Tony? I'll be right there.
Yeah. I'm going to start with raving or ranting or raving. I kind of want to really just echo what we talked about earlier, that everybody take care of their mental health and their physical health, and, take care of yourself so you can take care of others better. Right now things are hard, and, be a good human right now and look out for others. That's where that's what I'm going to say and stop with.
I'll go ahead. I've been kind of diagnosing and repairing some significant performance issues in one of our projects. And the thing that really struck me this week as I was doing that was how much value was provided, how critical it was that I could just dive into the code for the dependencies so that I could have a good idea of what was going on, and just the wealth of material and discussion that's out there on the web for the problems I was running into. So I'm just really grateful today for the open source community, and it makes it. I think it makes our jobs more tractable in a lot of ways, and that sense of community and sharing is just a wonderful thing to see.
Definitely, and I'm finally ready. Sorry for that, but now it's ready. So the thing I'm going to rave about is called YJS, and it's just so fantastic. It's a way to do shared editing in your CMS. Essentially, you can in this completely JavaScript based, so you can have like this post mirror, and someone else, and I could say hi world, whatever. Someone else already put in something with tigers, whatever. You can do Quill, another editor. You could draw collaboratively. Let's start a new thing here. So that's pretty cool. And you have full, let's just draw some heart or something like that, love for the world. And it has so many features. It's automatic syncing, offline support, peer-to-peer. And I think the really cool thing of YJS is, in the end, if all goes well, it could be shared editing a la Google Docs in your CMS, in WordPress, in Drupal, in everything. And this would be the coolest thing ever.
Oh, I love that. I want to program in ProseMirror so bad. It's one of my favorite tools. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. It looks like that's all the time we have today. Thank you all for watching and for listening. You can find us on Twitter at OpenTeams Inc. and Quantsite AI. Fabian, where can people find you and Drupal at?
Drupal is obviously at drupal.org, and me you can find on Twitter with @FabianFrance.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If y'all liked what you saw, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to see more content. You can join us next episode for our discussion about Terminus DB. And we will see you all soon, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you, Fabian.
Thank you, Fabian.
Perfect. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you much. Bye.